The Islamic Jihad movement in Palestine, known in the West as simply Palestinian Islamic Jihad, is a Damascus-based Palestinian Islamist organization formed in 1981. PIJ, together with Hamas and 6 other factions, are members of the Alliance of Palestinian Forces, which rejects the Oslo Accords and whose objective is the establishment of a sovereign Islamic Palestinian state. PIJ rejects a two-state solution and promotes the military destruction of Israel. Neither PIJ nor Hamas are members of the PLO. PIJ has been labeled a terrorist organization by the United States, the European Union, the United Kingdom, Japan, Canada, Australia, New Zealand and Israel. PIJ has undertaken numerous attacks on Israeli civilians, including suicide bombings, and has suffered extensive operations against its infrastructure carried out by the IDF, which resulted in severe losses to the group, and it appeared significantly weakened by 2004. Iran is a major financial supporter of the PIJ. Its financial backing is believed to also come from Syria. The Islamic Jihad movement has sent its gratitude to the brothers in Hezbollah, the Islamic resistance in South Lebanon, particularly Hassan Nasrallah, for their stance and support, be it financial, military or moral support, following the Israeli and Egyptian squeeze on Hamas in early 2014. PIJ has seen its power steadily increase with the backing of funds from Iran. The armed wing of PIJ is Al-Quds Brigades, formed in 1981, which is active in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, with its main strongholds in the West Bank being the cities of Hebron and Jenin. Its operations have included suicide bombings, attacks on Israeli civilians, as well as the firing of rockets into Israel. PIJ has much in common with Hamas, with both fighting against the existence of the State of Israel. Both groups were formed as offshoots of the Muslim Brotherhood, are members of the Alliance of Palestinian Forces and receive a large amount of funding from Iran. With similar goals, Hamas and PIJ have worked together on a number of projects. PIJ was formally established in Gaza in 1981 by 2 Palestinian activists, Dr. Fathi Abdel Aziz Shakaki, a Raf-based physician, and Sheikh Abdel Aziz Avda, an Islamic preacher from the Jabalia refugee camp, as well as Ramadan Shala, Bashir Mossar and 3 other Palestinian radicals, based in Egypt. Shakaki and Avda were originally members of the Muslim Brotherhood. Their views on the destruction of Israel, however, led them in 1979 to establish Islamic Jihad Shakaki faction, a branch of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, and conducted operations out of Egypt. The Shakaki faction was expelled from Egypt in 1981 following the assassination of Egypt's President Anwar Sadat by the Egyptian Islamic Jihad. Shakaki and Avda returned to Gaza where they formally established PIJ, from where it continued its operations. The aim of the organization was the establishment of a sovereign Islamic Palestinian state within the geographic borders of pre-1948 Mandatory Palestine, completely rejecting the political process. The organization professes that its goals can only be achieved through military means. PIJ began its armed operations against Israel in 1984. In 1988, its leaders were exiled by Israel to Lebanon. While in Lebanon, the group received training, support and other backing from Hezbollah and its backers in Iran, and developed a close relationship with the organization. In 1990, the headquarters of PIJ moved to the Syrian capital, Damascus, where it continues to be based, with officers in Beirut, Tehran, and Khartoum. PIJ masterminded several suicide bombings in Israel, the first one being the Tel Aviv-Jerusalem Bus 405 suicide attack in 1989, which resulted in 16 civilian deaths. Shakaki was a key player in setting up the Alliance of Palestinian Forces in January 1994, a coalition of 8 PLO groups, Islamic Jihad and Hamas, rejecting the Oslo process. PIJ was and continues to be considered by Israel the most extreme organization in its operational methods and commitment to the destruction of Israel. By 1995, PIJ was, according to Fisk, perhaps the fiercest of all Israel's modern-day enemies. Shakaki was assassinated in 1995 in Malta, and Ramadan Shala became Secretary General of the organization. There was a subsequent crackdown on the PIJ by Israel and the Palestinian National Authority which led to a significant weakening of the organization. On the 20th of February 2003, University of South Florida computer engineering professor Sami Al-Arian was arrested after being indicted on a terrorism-related charge. U.S. Attorney General John Ashcroft alleged at a press conference that Al-Arian was the North American head of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. On the 6th of December 2006, Sami Al-Arian was sentenced to 57 months in prison, pursuant to a plea bargain. In November 2006 he was found guilty of civil contempt for refusing to testify before a federal grand jury and served 21 months in prison on T.